Oh, hello there, yes. Turned out cold again, didn't it? Yes. Anyway, the big news story from yesterday, well, apart from that big news story, obviously, but the other big news story yesterday, for me personally, was James Esses, who's launched the Declaration for Biological Reality, which sounds terribly impressive, and I'm sure it's got nothing to do with his crowdfunder. Please give generously, because there's only a few more days to go. Anyway, it's signed by a whole group of organisations who are concerned citizens. There's, for example, Thoughtful Therapists, which is James Esses, or there's, who else is there? We've got the Reclaim Party, which is basically Lawrence Fox, and then we've got Fair Cop, which is basically Lawrence Fox, and we've got the Bad Law Project, which is basically Lawrence Fox, and of course we've got Reform UK, which is Lawrence Fox and a couple of other people, and a whole bunch of other individuals effectively working out of their bedroom, which is a whole bunch of people, allegedly, in the same way that I represent enormously large numbers of people, even though I'm just sat here. Yes, anyway, the Declaration for Biological Reality, which is an interesting notion, bearing in mind that there's an awful lot of contentious issues it contains. They implore, for some reason, on 4 particular areas, and I'm going to look at 3 of them today. I'm not going to touch on the women's rights one because I'm a bloke, and as an old-fashioned lefty bloke, I don't think it's my job to comment on those ones. But in terms of children and education, which I thought I could stick my oar in, we implore that children should never be prescribed irreversible, experimental and highly damaging puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones, save for their use in treating precocious puberty. This applies to the NHS, registered public clinics and online unregulated providers. Which got me thinking, because if these things are so dangerous, surely you wouldn't want them prescribed at all. Whereas this is suggesting that they're prescribed in certain circumstances, which to my mind, it looks a bit kind of iffy on a kind of biological level. Do they not work with certain children, or are they only dangerous with trans children? Which doesn't strike me as a very biologically sound thing from my limited knowledge of biology. Exploratory therapy for children with gender dysphoria should be protected. Nice open-ended one, that one. Okay, maybe, but what does that mean? Well, it means we reserve the right, from a nice Christian perspective, to tell them it's not real. It goes on that line. No person should be compelled to affirm a child's desire to transition. Okay then, but imagine, right, okay, if you're going to bring that law into schools and you get somebody who is quite outrageously transphobic in a school, are they going to be protected by your new laws? Because if they are, that opens up in a really horrendous can of worms for blindingly obvious reasons on what I would describe as a moral level, if nothing else. Schools should teach children biological reality. They do. That sex is binary and immutable. If you have a look at Key Stage 3 and 4 biology, you will basically see that. I know that because I know the curriculum. Okay? That's basically what is taught on, certainly at GCSE Foundation. I've never seen anything online, GCSE science, that actually teaches that. Whenever you see stuff in schools about it being taught, not in biology it isn't. Okay? That nobody is born with the wrong body and that gender dysphoria is a mental health condition. Again, I'm not convinced by that, because I do not believe that that is the biology, I'm afraid, because what that basically says is there is no such thing as a trans individual. And historically, we know that there are. Biologically, we know that there are. Okay? We know that there are certain biological papers out there which will affirm this. So if you're after a biological reality, by all means, but don't make statements categorically if that isn't actually the case. Schools should never socially affirm a pupil or enable them to socially transition. Okay then, again, that is as ever back to that section 28 thing, whereby magically, if I, as a teacher, don't get to say anything at all ever about anything. And if a child does come up to me with questions about their gender identity, I do have to stick my fingers in my ears and hum loudly so I can't hear them. I'm sure that'll work brilliantly with anyone's sense of self. Or according to this, do I simply shout at them that they're mentally ill and that they're wrong, and then point them to some dodgy therapist? A thoughtful one, no doubt. I don't know. But you can see the way that this is fine, but it just basically says that I need to do loads and loads of things which under Section 28, because we've still got gay people, don't work. Biological reality, if you like, on that one. Moving on, okay, to LGB issues, right? We implore that biological reality should be explicitly protected. Nobody should be reprimanded or sanctioned for holding such views. Okay, I don't believe presently in the UK that people are reprimanded or sanctioned for holding such views unless they're in a profession where it would affect those people they're working with. Again, imagine a scenario under this whereby somebody who is vehemently transphobic, not going to name any names, but you can guess a few of them in the public eye, is just basically allowed to say anything they want to people. There should never be a requirement, legal or otherwise, to use preferred pronouns or to acknowledge that someone has changed their sex. No one should be ever forced to state their preferred pronouns. Okay, fine. Again, you can do this, but I'm just wondering, if you're going to set this as a legal precedent, what's to stop other people doing the same thing? I mean, I've said before, this notion of, I remember back in the early 80s when a lot of people said that women shouldn't, because it was just wrong, be allowed to sign Ms. because there was no such thing. There's Mrs. and Miss. There's only two. That's reality. And these feminists are trying to destroy the family and presumably Western civilization that way. You do get a lot of this stuff. But why, in essence? Yeah? And the answer is because we want to. We want to do that. We want the permission to basically flatly refuse in and around the people we work with, or indeed our client group, to do that. Public bodies should be free from symbolism and bias grounded in gender identity ideology. Public sector workers and organisations, particularly the police and NHS, should remain ideologically neutral and not display ideological symbols on their uniforms, buildings or vehicles. Well, okay then, great. The whole pride flag, which seems to make some people really angry. Not that they're homophobic, of course. They're homophobic. But that's what that one is. Okay, fine. But what exactly is an ideological symbol? Anything we don't like, right? So any sense of public bodies responding to gay people in any way, shape or form will be made illegal. Not that they're homophobic, you understand. Not that they're homophobic. It's like the LGB Alliance. They're not homophobic. They're definitely not homophobic. It's all full of straight people. How could they be? Finally, the whole LGB thing, right? The term LGB, referring exclusively to sexual orientation, should be used as a distinct and separate category to gender identity. Okay, in what context exactly? If there are gay, lesbian, bisexual and other groups out there that decide not to do that, will they be allowed to? Do we give up notions of people choosing to welcome other people? I can remember back in the 90s with the kind of very, very tiny bisexual movement, in inverted commas, as it was then, who used to welcome everyone. It was democratic and open on that basis. It was a choice by the B people, however that was described, and indeed their sort of partners and all the people that may or may not get lumped into that one. It was their choice to do that. So they were just wrong, were they? Democratically, they were just wrong. Okay. LGB people should have a right to assemble without the T and without being unjustly accused of transphobia in doing so. Okay, fine. But in that case, as I've said, it might be an idea, therefore, that the LGB Alliance actually did some stuff around LGB stuff and wasn't fixated on the T. Imagine if this stuff does come through. Might they actually start that helpline? No. This is something that decries itself as a notion of reality, and yet the reality of this is it's just section 28 on steroids, and this will vastly affect vast numbers of people in ways that will be intensely negative, children included. Not those with precocious puberty, obviously, because magically they're biologically okay from whatever hormones they're taking. Anyway, it's good that James, please give generously, is involved in this, and I look forward to various people using this and pointing to it with all the different groups, which certainly aren't people in their bedroom supporting it. I don't know. I just find this stuff. I don't know. It's beyond sad in a lot of ways that these people have now dedicating their lives, or just grifting their lives in certain cases, on this one, just simply because they just don't like people being around. I don't know. What do we call people like that? Anyway, do have a lovely Tuesday. It's my zipping around by bus day. Not really looking forward to it. I'm reaching that stage where I'm going to cycle instead. Anyway, do have a lovely day.